Hey, it's Jordan, and in today's video we're going to be exploring the role of beauty in these moments of cultural and political unraveling. This recording that you're going to see was actually taken by my friend Eivind Skjellum on his Reclaim Your Inner Throne men's group portal. So if you don't know Eivind or the Reclaim Your Inner Throne work, it's a deep dive for men into the Jungian psychology and also the king, warrior, lover, magician archetypes. I've actually had the honor and the pleasure to be invited onto that program as the lover archetype for a number of years now. And Eivind recently recorded this interview with me, and I wanted to put it up again on YouTube to share with the wider world. So enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe, put your views down below underneath the video. And if you want to know anything more about Eivind's work or about my work, links again are in the top of the show notes. So enjoy the episode.
I believe we're fully live, Eivind. I've seen the
Yeah,
flash.
there's still a progress bar happening on my end. So yeah, we are actually live. Fantastic. Welcome everyone. I have invited my friend Jordan Lou Collier today to have a much needed conversation, I believe. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of Reclaim Your Inner Throne, and you, Jordan, you are the head coach of Arsa Marata.
That's right.
And yeah, welcome. Let's set a bit of context in a bit, but why don't you say a little bit more about who you are in that capacity?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jordan. I've been working with a men's organization and community for the last 8.5 years. It's called the Arsa Marata, which is fake Latin. It means the art of love. Big long story behind that. But essentially what we're doing and what we're looking to offer and evoke from the men that are close to us is this real spirit of the lover. Very much in the kind of adventurous, roving, drawing upon hundreds and hundreds of years of these great lover types that have come before, the kind of traveling poetic writers and musicians and artists, going back to the kind of myths of like Don Juan and Casanova, and to the troubadours, and even to some of the Sufi mystics.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a long lineage of ecstatics and just people that devote their life to beauty and to the mysteries. And so we want to bring back that spirit among men. And we do that in the context of dating, relationship advice, but that also goes much deeper as well.
It is funny as I listen to you speak how much these names and these lineages evoke a feeling of energy, or like there's like a legendary mystical quality to them. And so there's clearly a very strong lineage of this in our culture, and at the same time it seems to not have fully taken a hold as a sort of a staple of our culture. Like it's something a little bit on the fringes still. And that is a peculiar thing. Poetry and art and all of these things, it seems to be more of a luxury.
And it seems to have been muscled out big time by the kind of modern factory institutional way of life. I think there's very little space and definitely little encouragement and celebration of the people that live this kind of life.
Yeah.
You know, the lover, certainly in my culture, the lover is ridiculed. And I work with a lot of men that come along and say, Jordan, like, I love women. Like, deep down, if anyone knew what was in my heart for women, or if anyone knew what was in my heart in the tender moments of dreaming about the life I want to live, I'd be so embarrassed. You know, I'd be called this, and I'd be called soft, and I'd be called gay, and I'd be called like I'd be laughed at for having a sensitive side of me. But I think it's to be a masculine man who's strong and also has this absolute poetic love for beauty. There's nothing
That's the magic right there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing soft or wrong with that at all.
Yeah,
and it's needed. It's needed.
absolutely. And we're here now with the title "Beauty in Times of Unraveling," and of course, you and I, and we all know that these are extraordinary times. And well, I've had the great pleasure and privilege to be working with you one-on-one for about a year by now, and you're also an expert for the Lover Week on Reclaiming the Throne. And has always been fun.
Big honor.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you be part of that. And a lot of the time, we get a lot of soft, sensitive men on Reclaiming the Throne, but every once in a while, we get someone who's a little bit rough around the edges and a bit rigid. You know, maybe the 50+ kind of guys. You know, and then they watch your interview and they just feel so jealous, like. I want to have access to that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny. We do have, I think, I haven't actually done this before. I know there's something called a watch party, and I don't know if we need to do that. But I also have an eye on the messages on in the group. So if you should have any,
okay, sweet,
then
great. Yeah, I want to say a little piece, Eivind, to the gentleman who feels a little bit rigid, but is a bit jealous when I come on and speak about the lover's life. I've had it said to me many times over the years that I'm like this sliding door character, like that the other man talking to me was faced or had the opportunity to choose at one point in his life. Did he want to go the career route and to settle down with a woman and start a family, or did he want to go and follow his crazy passions and explore the whole world's offer of different spiritual and psychological pursuits, and date around and go to other cultures and live in different languages and learn different languages? And I went off and did that path fully and wholly, like not kind of going with the wind, but yeah, I'm going to go to Argentina, I'm going to learn this language like nobody else before me, cut off all communications to my home culture and immerse fully into this land and to know that. And so I always look at the older gentleman who's got his business life and his the strategy and the plan to go all the way to retirement, and he's like with a lot of warriorship and sovereignty. Yeah. It's always a funny moment to look over to the table and it's like, you devoted all your life to do that stuff, and I devoted all my life to do this stuff. Like what a unique face off or confrontation or two polarities coming together.
Yeah. And maybe we should play a little bit with that word polarity, because it seems very relevant, not only in the theme of unraveling, but also in the theme of your work. So I know that there's a little bit of cross-pollination between the Reclaiming the Throne and the Ars Morata community already. And maybe with this, there will be even more. That would be great. And what is a message? Shall we say, Reclaiming the Throne, there's a lot of emphasis on an underworld journey, and then we come out and we sort of bask in the radiant glory of the mystical lover. It's almost like a reward after having faced your demons in a pretty intensive way. But for the kind of man in our community who has already done this kind of work, or maybe he wants to do this kind of Reclaiming the Throne work, what would your message be to them about the lover, and particularly in this time?
So somebody who's really been in the underworld, having facing their addictions and
let's go with that guy. Yeah.
Well, I think one frame that I have very strongly is that life doesn't have to be a slog, and life shouldn't be a slog. And I think underworld work, shadow work, addiction work is vital. Like if we want to rebirth ourselves in a new phase of maturity and capacity to confront the challenges in all areas of our lives, we've got to do some digging. But I see so many men in a mindset of, I've just got to go and dig in my shadows until it's all gone. Like literally, I will not live the life that I really want to, or go after the women that I really want to, or create the business that I really want to, until I've done my work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that might be true for a short and intense period of time. I love these deep dives, you know, where it's like, I'm going to abseil down to the bottom of my psyche for 6 months or a year. But at some point that can just delay and delay and delay. And it's, well, nobody has to fix themselves entirely in order to be loved, both in intimate relationship or to feel love, to feel a sense of I'm at home in the world. Even with all the deep work in the world, there's going to be parts of us that are never resolved and are always perennially broken. And at some point in time, we've got to kind of come to terms with that. And as we do come to terms with that, and as we see that the people that we're relating to in our lives are also in the same, part of them is totally whole and beautiful and resilient and immaculate and a work of genius and a work of art. And some of everybody else in our lives is totally broken as well. So once we kind of really accept both sides of that paradox or contradiction, I think we're set free to a certain level.
Yeah, that's beautiful. One of the things that I saw often see on Reclaiming the Throne is that a man comes in on the front end, and they know that this is a powerful training, and now finally they're going to sort of upgrade themselves. And indeed, I use the words up level your life, and I mean that. But then there is a little bit of a tricky business that happens, is that the part of them that wants to upgrade or up level is the part of them that needs to be shed, you know? Because we strategically conceptualize the perfect version of our life, and we do that from a completely deficient mindset. So everything that we imagine is just completely whack, you know?
Yeah.
and then after a while, they come to terms with like, holy moly, I actually like the guy that came into this training wanting to upgrade. And then all of a sudden, the transformation is of a completely different nature than they believed initially. But in effect, and in effect and outcome, often quite similar to how they wanted it to be. But the way it happened is dramatically different. I'm sure you can relate to this in your own work as well.
Absolutely. So many men come in and they're like, I just need a band of brothers that are going to help me push through and perform, and doesn't matter how painful it's going to be, I'll work these 3 months until I get my transformation. And yeah, it's funny, halfway through, around week 7, week 8, it's like, I had some realizations, all the things I came into the training I don't want anymore. And then there's a real abyss or a no man's land. And stuff grows out of that. Yeah, that's very interesting. Just to throw another spanner in the works, because you already named a paradox. When it comes to the lover archetype, when I did my first, let's call it breakthrough workshop experience into unlocking the lover in me, because I was not naturally a very self-expressed lover type as a teenager. In fact, I was one of the most rigidly controlling, like, I'm not going to let anyone find out just how much I love that girl. Otherwise, I'll be mortified. Like I would repress my love so much.
I know that story.
Yeah. So when I had my first kind of breakthrough experience of that love just coming out and starting to be part of my self-expression, my initial insight was, I'm renouncing success. I'm renouncing success. Like, there's been a big inner part of me, a big part of my ego that's been so identified with being successful in a particular way, and I just gave it up. And that drive for genuine mission or genuine accomplishment returned a while after. It's not like I actually could fully renounce success forever. Like, there's a part of me that has a lot of drive for purpose. But it was like I needed at that time to renounce a certain addiction to success in some areas of my life so that I could go more deeply into the lover, which is, how can I let go of a lot of this strong warrior need to achieve and get things done in a particular way, to shake off that rigidity and that kind of self-conformity and discipline that I was applying. Then I could really, really relax. And if a woman flaked on me, big issue and struggle for men, if a woman flaked on me, I could just let it go. I don't take it personal. Sometimes a woman will come, sometimes she won't come. I don't have to hold other people accountable or feel like I got messed around with because my time is valuable. It's like, yeah, they come into my life, they go out of my life. It's so much more ease came forth. And of course, the more you get flaked on in your dating life, well, the spontaneity that allows flakiness is also the same spontaneity that creates another opportunity. And I think if, as men, we can not get rigid because we get stood up, well, that sucks, but I can go and do something else. And then there's another opening that can happen later on. Yeah. It's
interesting to notice in myself as you speak that I'm certainly more towards the end of a bit like structure and rigid. You know, I like integrity, like maturity, like adulthood. You know, I need to be, and people need to be accountable, and so on and so forth. And and I've certainly seen how that can come and bite me in the ass and just makes me feel like I'm fucking suffering because of the force of my principles. And so it does become a bit of a balancing act, doesn't it? To not become so much of a puddle that
I had such an interesting conversation with a man who was a leader of a really great men's program, and they also did relationship stuff. Really, really good, solid program. And he was breaking up with his girlfriend at the time, and we were talking about it, kind of in between bouts of him being in the process with her. And I was asking him where is it getting tight, or where is it going wrong, and what is she not liking, and so on. And it was interesting that his first kind of value or principle in relationship was integrity, which is such a beautiful and important thing. His first principle was integrity. And because he felt his girlfriend was not in integrity, he told her off. He scorned her,
right.
And he challenged her to step into integrity. And she just did not fit with her system and her constitution, and she flew off somewhere else. And I'd said, what an interesting contrast, because our first principle in our men's work is ease and delight. Ease and delight. So can you allow, and I'm not talking about being a boundaryless puddle that never speaks like, hey, I don't like the way you're showing up, or like, I feel hurt by what you did. It doesn't mean being a puddle where everything's go with the flow, but it's giving people a lot more loving, accepting space to get things wrong, or to feel as if, if they don't want something, or they feel in a contraction or contradiction at a particular time, they're able to have that without the heaviness of coming back into process with us. And I think I've spent many years alongside you in the self-development, spiritual, psychological growth scene. A lot of people turn relating into a process. So I've got my arsenal of authentic relating things that I can say, and I know that I'm, A star in nonviolent communication. I've got a PhD in circling, and I know how to make the whole connection a deep, transformative process, which is an astonishing array of skills. But if those skills get so fertilized, strengthened, you lose the ability to be in relationship without going through the process. The lightness of being. How we can live together without having to fight, still in the underworld.
That's beautiful, man. I love what you're saying here, and it so resonates with a lot of what I've seen on my own path. That work the idea of work to evolve, to expand, to improve, to become bigger, to eventually become sovereign, it's so often conceptualized, and we of course would do that as well because we have the encounter with the demons and, you know, the wounds from the past and so on and so forth. But one of the things that is so important at the very outset of Reclaim is, so we're going to map out all the shit that happened in your life, and we're going to contextualize it into your personal story. And the reason we're doing that is exactly not to build an identity based on your wounding. And the reason we're doing that is exactly because we want to have the awareness of what it is that we're leaving behind. You know? So to be able to let go of the attachment to misery and despair, we need to become sufficiently aware of its existence. And then at a certain point, we need to just relinquish the path of misery. And this is what I hear from you. It's like, no, actually, man, we can actually do deep work without being fucking committed to our pain and our wounds. We can be committed to our joy and our expansion and our radiant ease and delight. And that is quite unique, actually. It's quite unique.
Yeah.
Which I love about you and your work.
Yeah, I've just listening to you, I realize how much of a subversive sense of humor I've got. Like, my girlfriend might be on the bed, for example, basically in misery and, what was the other word you just said? Misery and
despair, probably.
Despair and identifying with the trauma. I'd be like, baby, are you in your misery and despair again? And just make it fun. And she hit me the other day, like, I'm doing my man on a purpose thing with my headphones, and I've got a rule in the house: don't talk to me with headphones on. And I'm like that, and all I want right now is that I don't get interrupted because the flows come in and the headphones are on. And she asked me for a bit of help, and I give her the death glare. So much for being the lover archetype, but I give her the death glare. Thank you, baby. She's just brought me a smoothie. I give her the death glare, and then she, from her great good humor, turns around to me and is like, hey, I come in later on, and she's actually hurt a bit inside because I'm giving her the death glare. She's being sweet and kind, and she goes, hey, death glare, and then she goes, I don't want to talk to you, like playing with the headphones. So it's like, we have got, we're both absolutely ferocious. Just looking at her now, we're both ferocious explorers and warriors to understand what's in the shadow, and you know, we're not stopping at any length to face uncomfortable parts of ourselves and do that work. But what ends up happening in the relationship is that we take it with so much lightness that we make fun of each other's masks and roles and habits and bits of shadow, to the point where it's like, if you're laughing, how can I be identified with my death glare guy, because she makes fun of me about death glare with the heart open all the time. And it's, we're a deeply psychological couple, but it's fun most of the time, actually.
It's just so resonant with my own relationship. And I think there is such a beautiful teaching here, is that to what extent am I as a person, and are you as a person, attached to churning on your wounds? Like, oh, this and this and this. And then someone pokes there, and instead of just receiving the lightness of the poke, and it's like, oh, there's a good humor in the voice, like clearly this is meant to open me up. Almost as a matter of principle, I have to shut down and contract around it because I wasn't seen in my pain, you know. And I've seen this happen so much in the personal development world, and with Michelle now, you know, she's amazing and resilient. Every once in a while, she goes into a victim, you know, because we're in this big conversation around where to live, and there's a lot more sort of reason for us to live in Norway than anywhere else, by the looks of it. And so there's a process in her, and I just see her go into her process, and initially I can like, oh yeah, wow, what's happening for you? And then I just feel the narrative take over, and it just gets boring very fast. And I just say, oh, you're about to get boring on me, aren't you? Like, in the context of our relationship, that really works. And the moment I say that, she just snaps out of it, and she just lights up and starts laughing. And so the way that we can sort of interrupt all of these misery generating narratives, I think actually is quite a relevant inquiry right now in the context of the world. How can we bridge this conversation that we're having to be a little bit more explicitly pursuing the title of this, beauty in the time of unraveling?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are scared right now, and the honest truth is that I find myself being scared quite often myself, even though I feel like I understand what's happening. The intensity of it is just impactful. So
What are you scared of? I'd love to understand.
I think for me right now, I'm scared of the extreme polarization that speaking the truth is at the same time exposing myself to the potential of cancel culture, for instance.
Yeah.
So just having a little bit of nuance to a conversation, and there is a part of me that expects that, okay, the mindless hordes are going to come running down and tear down everything that I've built, even though, you know, all I want to do is to bring service and delight and empowerment and love, you know. But when people don't want that, seemingly, because it's easier to blame others, then, you know, the mindlessness of it is just so jarring for me that it makes me afraid sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild.
Mm.
That's wild. In our work, we're sticking up for, I mean, our response to the culture wars. There's a beautiful video by a guy called Peter Lindbergh on the Rebel Wisdom
I love that
channel, which I know you're a big fan of. He calls it Culture Wars 2.0, and it's as if there are so many different pockets and teams and sides that are all firing off against each other in these multiple polarities, like a multipolar warfare, he calls it. And so most people identify with one side of a debate or a struggle. And then as soon as they do, they got shot down by the other. And there's almost like a World War II, like on the subtle level, is almost like a World War II scenario where it's like, hey, I'm in Indonesia. I wasn't fighting the war, but now this colony's come to try and invade us. And now what? I just got shot down by you. Now I've got to have some shots back. It's wild, that kind of warfare.
Yeah.
So how we're positioned in this is to be honest. Many, or the majority of the men that we work with, have tuned out several years ago. Like, this cultural unwinding, from my perspective, started many years ago. Like, it goes back to the 1990s with Nirvana and beyond. Like, ever since I've been able to understand what's going on in the world, we've been in this late capitalist consumer culture. So when was there a time in my life when things on an institutional level were holy and beautiful and preserved, and the entire town came together in a form of ritual and ceremony to embark upon a sacred sharing together? I never saw that in my life. I saw some Christmas masses and so on, but already by the time I was 7, the kids all wanted to have the new computer, the Mega Drive or the Nintendo, more than they wanted to participate in culture or community. So I've grown up in a fragmented culture. It's been unraveling for decades already. And it's got to this point where most of the men that I know who've given up, it's not a collapse, it's a giving up, but I'm going to work on myself. So I don't want to listen. I'm leaving Facebook. You know, there's a lot of our members and so on. I just don't want to be on Facebook. I think this atmosphere is toxic. I'm at least going to read some stoicism, do some personal work, meditate, a little bit of shadow work, and hopefully, if I'm lucky, I'll meet a great woman, or I'll find some community and be one of these isolated hermits that ends up eking out a good life despite the masses being in some kind of war. So that's the majority, but the sad thing, or the powerlessness of it, and I haven't come to a full articulation of this yet. The sad thing about that is that we've got voices of good that do not stand up and say anything because they don't quite know what to say, how to say it. Like, how do I bring, I'm pondering the term aesthetic leadership at the moment. It's like, I know that there is a beautiful, good and true life, an aesthetic life that is harmonious and honoring of all things and really knows what beauty is all about. How can I possibly put voice to that and bring that into the world? Because what you see in these culture wars is that there's zero beauty. There's
zero beauty, zero fun. It's just finger pointing.
Cynical
from
and toxic,
every side.
And yeah. So if you're involved in any of that crossfire, you're outside of beauty. And beauty, like the way I see it in the psychodrama of current events, beauty is like this orphan, starving child that can't stick up for itself, that's been completely forgotten, that no one's talking about, but also no one is really offended if you talk about. So when I say, people say, what's your work about? For me, it's restoring beauty in people's lives, restoring beauty in our relationships. No one seems to be firing on beauty. Not yet. Like, maybe we'll meet our match as this thing goes on. No one seems to be firing at beauty, but no one knows how to speak the need for beauty into the system. And
sorry to interrupt you, but do you think that beauty in the general eyes of the culture is so forgotten and insignificant that it can't even possibly provoke a reaction because people don't even have an attention on it? Are we so utterly exiled beauty from our culture that it's become?
I don't think it's so forgotten that people can't recognize it when they see it.
Right.
I think that kind of shimmering layer of beauty is stuck underneath massive layers of crud. So we don't see it, and things that are supposed to be beautiful, or things that have got a tradition of being beautiful, no longer are really beautiful. Hello Kitty comes to mind out in the East. Hello Kitty, that's the pinnacle of beauty in some people's perceptions. No, it's a little cartoon cat. Like, it doesn't contain much of the sublime, or like I heard this word a few times lately, just like porn, the pornification of women, especially pornification of ourselves as men. How, what a stud, or what it means to be a virile man. I should be like this.
Yeah.
Pile driving some woman who's totally disembodied and not in touch with herself, her inner sensations. Beauty has become very, very perverted, and I think a lot of the stuff in the intellectual battlegrounds are anti-beauty, like the big deconstructionist movements, and you see this in art. How often do you go to a modern art gallery and feel profoundly moved because something of the sublime is kind of infused into the canvas and reaches through and grabs you? It's like, no, this is my red square, and this is my kind of blue thing with a few blotches all over it, or this is my bed, or this is the urinal. It's been almost like institutionally hacked out of the discourse on every single level.
I'm reminded of that rotting banana peel that was taped on an art gallery wall in Miami and sold for thousands and thousands of dollars, and I was just like, it was just a test, an indictment for the absolute destruction of aesthetic culture. Like that would be considered art is offensive to me. It means to me, and I think this is part of the challenge that we're faced with, is that the aesthetic has become completely disembodied. We don't have an embodied connection to beauty anymore. It's now conceptual, and so if it feels clever, or that was a clever twist on a conceptual framing of reality, then that's all of a sudden like art. And so you have your urinals or an unbroken piece of glass or something on, like, weird, stupid, trivial shit that some elitist, self-congratulatory artists, they find it clever. But I mean, it's an affront to the soul in my perception. I think it's offensive to the parts of me that feel profoundly human.
Yeah, that's interesting. I also had the insight as you were speaking that a rotting banana taped to the wall is the perfect piece of art, because if that's what's emerged from our culture and someone taped it to the wall and you look at it, it's the art piece is a reflection. So you're looking at that rotten banana, but that rotten banana is in you, it's in me, it's in all of our society. The fact that that got exalted to art speaks about all of us and what we've collectively created at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So yeah, our culture right now, there's many elements that are like rotting bananas taped onto walls, and that is like, that's what it's all about. That's your aspiration. that's what you can be.
That's what the apex of human development. You can be the guy that tapes a rotten banana to a wall.
Yeah, and if you're looking for love on Tinder or to go into some bar, like the resonance and some of the kind of habits that people have of interacting with each other is rotting banana, which begs the question, like, art is, sure, that reflects our culture, but that's not all of us as well. And so do we want to create a different story through the art that we create, the Facebook posts that we write, the books that we make, the relationships we have with each other? Do we want to create a different representation that others can see and look at, and invite others into a renewal, a cultural renaissance? So I felt scared over the last few months, and I've had doomsday scenario things like, what if all the banks get seized and cash is worthless, and all of a sudden we're in this like 1929 with the Weimar Republic, where people are going down the street with wheelbarrows full of money. And I'm watching videos on YouTube about Venezuela, which Venezuela was one of the richest countries in Latin America and has dwindled to the edge of extinction right now. You know, the hyperinflation has caused the currency to be worth $3 a month, $6 a month salary. And it's
crazy.
15 years ago, Venezuela had sizable middle class, purchasing power, really some shining cities. And it's absolutely on the edge. There's scenes of that country. And I mean, this particular story, I haven't spent time in Venezuela, but I spent a lot of time in Colombia, Argentina, Cuba, Brazil, like all that area. But to see a country that looks like one of the most impoverished on earth is like profoundly, and within 15 years, that spiraled down into that level. And so I think, like, what if that happens in the West, or what if some of the Western countries fall to that level of despair? So I meditate on things like this, actually. This is the lover's approach to the horror of the world, is actually, can I meditate with this horror so I'm less horrified by it and trying to avoid it, but can I read the most horrific news and actually absorb it and take it in and relate to it as if it's reality, relate to it because it is reality. And I think my hope is that as our societies unravel and as we drop deeper into crisis, and I think we're going to go a lot deeper than what we've seen already this year, as we drop deeper into crisis, I think there has to be, maybe this is faith speaking rather than good judgment, but I think there has to be an unwinding of the social structure and the cultural structure, and at the same time there's going to be a flourishing of something else. And there has to be an upward movement to correspond with the down. You see the war efforts in different countries. There was a great coming together of the British people in the different wars, just to, like, a great spirit. And every time you've seen a big problem in London, neighbors actually speak to each other again, and they're on the same side. So I believe that there is, underneath all of the crud, a human spirit that can actually rally together around a common foe and give itself a new rebirth. And I believe in that. And I think, I think beauty, at least in my gang, you know, my crew, my reality tunnel, my portion of the world, that there's a lot of people that believe in beauty. And it's like, yeah, I want to drop out of some of this multipolar cultural war that's going on. But I'm not just going to drop out and go traveling and sit on a beach and drink beers all day and try and avoid the news. It's like, no, I want to put, as hard and as painstaking as it is, I want to put, a client of mine said it beautifully to me yesterday, I've seen a touch of the divine, and my life's task is to try and funnel the divinity and the goodness that I've seen and know into various artifacts and projects in the world, so that other people can maybe get a taste of what I was fortunate enough to see.
Very profound, Jordan. Very profound, and also quite a prediction for the next couple of years that I unfortunately am in total agreement with you on. And I'm intrigued by this upwards movement. I'd like to think that you and I are part of that, as well as many of our allies and the people of our communities and so on and so forth. And time remains to be seen if we've done sufficient shadow work to warrant that belief. I like to think so. Actually, I've started learning a lot more about growing food this year, because I've just been feeling a little bit of concern about the infrastructure of food distribution, and I'm just, you know, it can never hurt to start having some fun, and I'm loving it. I'm having so much fun. But who knows if it will actually be more than just having fun with it. Let's hope not. But if that's what's required for creating, as we say in Reclaim, a world where people thrive, then so be it. But Jordan, as we start to move towards the end of this conversation, which I've loved, by the way, I actually really enjoy this format, and I'm curious curious what it would be like to do this kind of watch party thing. So I need to do a little bit more research on this for next time.
We'll be Zoom bombed or something like that, where they all drop into the room and pull down their pants. And
is that what's happening on watch parties? Then maybe we'll drop that. Some final words, stepping away from the gloomy meta of the world. What is one piece of advice that you have for the guys listening, or women too, in the pursuit of beauty? What do you encourage? How can we stay connected to beauty in times like this?
Well, it's important for us all to keep our spirits up. That's it. That's the biggest thing. You know, as if you look at any news broadcaster or YouTube, the top videos and thumbnails are pretty much doomsday messages, just reporting on more and more unraveling. It's easy to get weighed down by that. So it's imperative to keep our spirit up. Why would you continue to fight if there is a war? Why would you continue to do something if everything around you is crumbling? Where does the human spirit rise up from? How does the human spirit get erect and want to push and penetrate something out into the world? And I think the only fuel for that is beauty. And if I have the grace of, in the midst of the rubble on YouTube, watching a music video that is tinged with that sublime, that puts my hair on end, that fills my heart with something, that I get up from the computer and I'm just like, wow, like that totally, you know what I mean? Where you just hear a piece of music for 5 minutes and it totally shifts the course of your day, because it had something magical in it. or my girlfriend in a moment, like she just brought me a smoothie from the delivery guy and came in, and I was talking to her and about her, and her face was a mixture of like being seen but awkward shyness. Like a 5-minute moment like that of really being in the presence of beauty is reignites my spirit. So the practice, as you asked, is to seek beauty in whichever form you can actually find it around you right now. And I think up in Norway, you guys are super privileged because
we're so lucky here. Everything
yeah.
is just chill here. People are enjoying themselves at the beach and around lakes. There is no level of protesting in the streets. Who knows if we're going to import these tensions to Norway, just because, you know, cultural memes and all that stuff. But
if you're in some like riot-filled city in the middle of the States where it's like carnage and there's no nature and all you see is ugliness, then it takes a real proactive spirit to seek it out. And if you live in a big city, what you do have is culture, and you have the music, and you have street musicians, and you have other people, and you have the women and men that you interact with each day.
Your video disappeared. Okay, there.
Here it's back. To seek beauty in that. And it's not like, oh, that's a nice vista, I'll take a photo and stick it on Instagram, I did my beauty practice, tick. It's like, no, let's be quiet for 5 minutes. I want to not just think the sunset is beautiful, but I want to let it hit me like a meditation. It's really slowing down in front of beauty. It's not like going to the art gallery and being like, okay, I've seen the Mona Lisa. It's like, no, let's pause. Let's take her in. What was he trying to say through this painting? And try and let the essence of the beautiful artifact or person hit you. That's the practice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love that. I do appreciate the sense of transmission that I often get from your words. It's a real gift that you have. And I know that right now you're about to launch a new round of your mastery. I believe it's built on a somewhat similar template to Reclaiming Your Throne, I believe, in terms of being a 3-month online delivery deep dive. And in our conversations lately, on our one-on-one conversations, you've been quite excited about the caliber of guys that are coming to you right now. So I was thinking as well, as we end here, to reach out to you guys in the Reclaiming Your Throne alumni. Now that you've been working quite a lot on personal sovereignty, shadow, and you've been touching on the lover with Reclaim as well. Though having met Jordan on Reclaim, maybe you'd be excited to hear more about what's available from you right now, Jordan. So why don't you take 1 minute to just give us the download on what's happening and how we can engage with it.
Yeah, so I'm really about to launch a new round of our mastery. It's a 3-month online journey. What we also have is a 2-day live component as well. So at the end of the 3 months, you'll be invited to Bucharest, Romania, for a special 2-day with room full of women, a lot of opportunity for polarity and embodiment practice, and to get a lot of feedback along the way. So yeah, we've got these 2 components. But essentially, the men that have signed up and joined my Mastery Mastermind group are men that have done some chunks of big, solid work, or they've lived some real stories with women, and in their intimate lives, they've taken some wounds and they've taken some blows, but their spirit remains intact, and they want to, in the future, really march forward with the spirit of the lover igniting them. And so there's deep work involved, but it's not grueling. It's really the lightness, as I've been talking about, really bringing up like the shadow and the bits we're ashamed of, and the sexual fantasy we don't want to talk about, and the difficulty with attachment that we have with women, and our like hiding places in intimacy. Yeah, we're going to be tapping into all those places, but with lightness, with humor, with fun, expanding our self-expression. And it's really this deepening into the appreciation of everyday beauty as a fuel for our spirit moving forward. It's yeah, a deep inquiry into a life of meaning, and also just the nuts and bolts of intimacy and dating and relationship skills and insights you might need.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the capacity to be connected to beauty, to the play of polarity in the positive sense, and to even now be in a space of being on a daily basis opened up by beauty and love, I think is a tremendous gift that you're offering. And would be good if we could end this with some kind of link or some kind of place that the men could go to learn more, or even apply. Maybe they can just apply, and because I think the way you do it is that someone can apply and then just have a conversation with you, no commitments, but to get to know you a little bit more, right?
Yeah, we need to see if it's a mutual fit. So it's our mastery program. We need to make sure they're men that have had a few successes and a few losses in their time, in their relationships. Men that have done a bit of work. So it's not a foreign environment to talk about like the masks we wear and the ways that we close off in intimacy. But yeah, if you've watched this video until now and you've resonated with this whole conversation, if you go to arsamarata.com/mastery, you can fill in the application form, tell me a little about yourself, and we can talk on the phone, see if it's a mutual fit. Also, if to dive fully in is maybe not your biggest priority right now, have a look on the Ars Marata website. We've got materials, links to videos. Zan's book, my mentor Zan Perion's book, is his big treatise on women and relationships and beauty. So there's some things there to sink your teeth into, whatever level of readiness and hunger you've currently got.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, Jordan.
Thanks for the interview, Eivind. I loved it. Some of the places we went. Yeah, always a blessing.
And I see that there were several people that were following us, a couple, and I'm sure there's going to be tons more that are going to be seeing it over the next hours and days. So appreciate this. It was fun. I think I'm going to do this with more people, and maybe do the watch party. Get all modern.
Get the upward spiral going. With is on that trajectory.
Yeah. Okay, buddy. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye everyone.
Thanks for watching.